right, so we just finished up the easiest block in this little mini quilt. Let's go ahead and jump straight ahead to probably the most difficult. But maybe that's not fair to call it the most difficult. Perhaps a better term would be a little more time intensive, right? Because there's a lot of thread color changes and we're working with a lot of different mediums. But that's what's so fun about this quilt, is that there are so many varieties of techniques that you're going to learn through this, and it really is adorable. I mean, you know, Kimberbell has a phrase that they like to say. They say, "Who cares how long cute takes?" And that is so true. This is going to take a bit of time, but I promise the results are worth it. So let's go ahead and make that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. All right, so if you're following along with me, I am on page 11 of our instructions, and you can see here, once again, all of the different fabrics that you're going to select. You're going to be hooping a light mesh cutaway stabilizer into your hoop, and I'm choosing option 1 to do the block by block quilting yet once again. Now, once that goes in, again, we're going to put our pot of gold on top of it, just like we did with the previous clover block, and then we'll go ahead and begin stitching. So let's go ahead, and we have our hoop. In fact, this is my 6x10 hoop, and I'm going to go over to the machine first and look for the designs found on my USB stick. So the background quilting file that I'm looking for is the Pebbles, and I believe it's down here a little further. There we go, the 4x8 Pebbles. All right, and I go ahead and hit set. And remember, you don't want to hit embroidery quite yet because we want to add on the applique first. So I'm going to hit add and go to my USB stick once more. And now I'm going to look for that rainbow. And here we go. It's KD5130, the 5x7. All right, now that that's brought up, I'll go ahead and hit set. Perfect. Those two designs are now combined, so I'll hit embroidery. So let me go ahead and bring my hoop right over to the machine. Okay, I will slide this in. And then my first thread color is, it doesn't matter, it's just going to stitch the placement line for my batting. All right, now that that's been stitched out, I'll go ahead and place my batting piece over top. I'll remove the hoop from the machine and come over to my cutting station. And with the Kimberbell duckbill applique scissors, I'll just trim this away. Now you're going to notice that I have quite a bit of extra here, and that's simply because I used a scrap piece of batting that I had. But if you're trying to be a little bit more conservative with your batting, then all you have to do to figure out what batting size to cut it to is just take a look at the end of the design, and whatever size it has you ultimately trim it up, just add a 1/2 inch to that, and that's the batting size you'll cut, and then you just are trimming away very little. So that's just a little tip for you. All right, now that the batting has been trimmed away, it's going to do a placement line for where to place my background fabric. It's now time to add the background fabric, but here's a reminder to add the Kimberbell Fusible Backing to the back side of your background fabric. It's really going to help add a little more stability to your block, and it really helps prevent any puckering from the block. It's now time to add my favorite part, and you know what that is. It's the background quilting, right? But I am going to change my thread color out to be a green, a little bit lighter green, because I want it just to basically add texture to the block without taking away from the design. But when it comes to background quilting, it's totally up to you as a personal preference as to what color you want it to be. Now these next several steps are going to repeat themselves over and over again because we're stitching out now the 7 different colors of the rainbow. So just as a reminder, what's happening is it does a placement line so that we know where to place our fabric. We put that specific color of fabric over top of it. Then we're going to trim it away after it's stitched down, and then it will just continue over and over and over again until we finally get them all done. And then we will change thread colors at the very end in order to have each stripe be its own color. But for now, it doesn't matter what color thread you use. So I'm going to go ahead and use black and just keep it consistent throughout. Don't worry, it's not going to show up. The beautiful satin stitches will cover that up a little bit later. All right, let's go ahead and stitch out our first rainbow. All right, if you noticed something a little funky as I was doing this, you may have wondered, wait a minute, Kris, I think you put the colors in the wrong order. Well, yeah, my oops. There were a couple colors that I accidentally, inadvertently changed. Don't let that bother you, all right? The most important thing is this. If that were to happen to you, and it probably won't because now you've just learned from my mistake, right? But if it does happen to you, I don't want you to fret too much because actually it'll be just fine. All you want to do is make sure that the color order for the rainbow up above it is the same color order that you have going into the pot of gold. So that's a simple fix. So go ahead and just continue to stitch along, putting those colors in whatever order you want, but I think you'll have much better luck than I did. Not a big deal. All right, so good luck with that. Again, make sure you're paying attention to the color order, and whatever color order you have going into the pot is the same color order you'll have at the rainbow on the top. All right? Okay, with that being said, let's go ahead and continue with stitching out the pot of gold. All right, we're doing the placement outline for the pot of gold. And with my piece of brown leather, I'll go ahead and place it directly over top. Now I'm going to go ahead and trim away the excess. All right, now it's time for all those thread color changes. Are you ready? Get ready because we've got lots of thread color changes going on here. First off, I'm going to go with pink. next I'm going to do the green, which according to your directions is not going to be the green, right? Because I accidentally put it in the wrong order. So I'm just simply paying attention to the color of fabric that's before me. All right, our rainbow has now been stitched out, and now it's time to change our thread color. And this time we're going to do the pot fill. And so I'm going to change the thread color to black. Our next stitch out is going to be the little swirls on the little pot of gold. So it's more of an accent. It's also going to do the satin stitching around the pot of gold. So it's really up to you as to what you want to see it, decorated in. I'm going to go ahead and choose a little bit lighter brown. The leather brown is a little bit darker, so I just want a little bit of contrast. That's the look I'm going for. Again, I can't wait to see your pictures and see how you put it all together. Okay, now that the pot of gold has been stitched out, it's time to stitch out the gold coins. So for this, you're going to definitely want to change your thread color to a gold, and then we're going to want to use the help of our Mylar sheets in order to make that shimmer and look really fun and festive. So let's go ahead and stitch out the placement line for the coins, and then we'll add the Mylar over top. Right, I'm just going to remove this from the machine a little bit so that you can see what's happening here. And I'm going to just go ahead and tear away the excess Mylar in preparation for it now going back over and doing the satin stitch on the coins. So it's actually really simple to remove, as you can see here. All right. There we go. So all of that excess has been removed. Now you have the nice sparkly in the middle. And now it's going to go over one more time, still with the same gold thread, and doing a satin stitch around the coins. So it's now time to add some additional coins, as well as we're going to add the top rim of the pot. And before we do that, Kimberbell asks us to use a little piece of wash away topping to just go over top of that. And I'm going to take a little bit of paper tape and hold this wash away topping in place. And basically what this is doing is just helping to protect some of these stitches underneath, especially the Mylar stitches, because there's going to be a lot happening right now and a lot of cutting happening also at the same time. So in order to protect the Mylar, we're adding a small piece of the wash away topping over top. All right, so this is going to stitch the placement line for where to put our glitter applique sheets. All right, it's time to go ahead and add that beautiful glitter applique sheet. But before we do, make sure that you peel back the plastic top layer. Very, 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 very important. All right, so don't forget that. We're going to just remove that. And now I place the glitter applique sheet over top of those placement outlines. All right, so we have one more set of coins to go, but before we do, we need to trim up this glitter. So coming back right over here to the table, I'm just going to take my little flexi snips here and trim away. Now it might be a little tricky to see where your stitches are because we are using the gold thread color, but if you'll just ride those scissors right along that barrier, you should be just fine. And again, this is one of the reasons why the wash away topping can be so helpful too, is because it allows us to just slide these scissors right along the sewn edge. You want to also remember that this is a raw edge applique. So you go ahead and cut it as close to that stitch line as you like, because it's just important to remember that there are no satin stitches on this. So I like to cut mine right up to the edge. All righty, looking good. All right, one more layer of coins, and on this next layer, we're going to use the leather applique sheet here. So let's go ahead and first stitch out the placement lines for the third set of coins. Okay, now it's time to add the leather. And because you can see this wants to curl up, I am going to use a little bit of paper tape to help me hold it in place. Now these coins also will not be having a satin stitch, so just cut it as close as you like to the stitch line, okay, without cutting through the stitch line, of course. And sometimes I like to do just a little rough cut around the edges, and then just, just to make sure that it gets all cut out, and then I will actually go back and do a little, trimming up to just kind of fine tune it. And you could even do the fine tuning once it's out of the hoop as well, because that way you might have a chance to, just kind of do a little bit more bending of the fabric and such to get up and close. So whatever you feel most comfortable with. All right, that's looking pretty good. Okay, now I'm also going to remove the excess water soluble topping. Okay, and this will just tear out as well. You could take some tweezers if you wanted to and get some of those smaller parts, or you could just wait until this is out of the hoop and just go back and add a little bit of water to this, and it will wash away on its own. Use my little tweezers right here. those little stray pieces. And again, because it's water soluble, you can just add a little bit of water and it will remove on its own as well. So don't worry too much if you can't get it all. Okay, with most of that removed, I'm now going to take it over to my ironing board, and I want to just kind of press this in place a little bit. And mainly what the purpose of that is just to really hold down the glitter applique sheets a little bit better. So I'm going to take it over here, but make sure that before you do that, you have some kind of barrier in between the iron and the glitter applique sheets. And so you could use, you know, the plastic that you had peeled away from it. So I could use this piece, or I could use a scrap piece of fabric over top of it, just as long as you have a little barrier. I'm going to go ahead and use the plastic that I had peeled away from earlier, and I'm just removing some of the tack on here, okay, making it less tacky. And now again, I just place it right over top like that and put my iron to it for about 10 seconds. Okay, let that cool down a little bit and remove your topping. All right, looks really good. All right, we are almost done. All we have left are the little mylar stars that twinkle in the background. So fun, just like we did on the clover block. So it's first going to stitch out the placement outlines for the little stars. I'm going to add the mylar over top, and then we finish off with the satin stitch and we're done. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove this from the hoop. I'm going to put it right over here where my ironing station is, just so that I can get a better look of where to place my mylar. All right, I am going to use the help of some paper tape to hold the mylar in place. There's two different pieces here. And if you're looking for the two different pieces, you'll actually get the two different pieces by cutting one of the mylar sheets in half. All right, so a little bit of tape up here and a little tape down here. Again, it's just to hold it in place. I'm going to use the same color of gold thread, which will go over top of the stars in a really pretty motif. And then I will peel it away and it will all be done. All right, so now this is stitched out, we'll go ahead and tear away this pretty mylar. All right, and I can get the bits and pieces once it's finally done. But the final stitch out is actually a placement line that is going to help you when it comes to trimming the block at the very end. So it is an important one. For the sake of the video, whoops, I'm going to actually change it out to black thread just so that we can see it a little bit better. This is going to stitch just kind of a placement line for our orange pop rulers. All right, we are all finished. So let's go ahead and bring it over here. All right, so you can see here that a final stitch line came here, and then it has a little ticking mark right here in the center. Now, If you're using the orange pop rulers, which I am going to use and show you how to use on this particular block, it takes you step by step on how it's done. But if you did background quilting, you will also be able to measure and see if this is the correct size. If it ends up being the size that it wants us to trim it down to, which is going to be a 4.5 by 8.5, you could take your ruler and just double check on these lines here that had stitched out originally for the background quilting. And that is 8.5. And that one is 4.5. So this looks really good. So if I wanted to, I could essentially just use the outside line with a ruler and be able to stitch that out. Now, if you didn't do the background quilting designs, you wouldn't have that. It would just stitch out without these lines, and that's why orange pop rulers are so important. So let's go ahead and do it the orange pop ruler way and see how this is done according to the directions. So I'm going to place this down, and it tells me that it wants me to use both the smaller one and the little bit bigger one. Okay, so we're using the 4.5 by 6.5 and the 6.5 by 8.5 in conjunction with each other. Because we have this little tick mark right here in this middle, it has us line up our center arrow on the orange pop ruler right up against that. And we're also lining up the inside edge of the ruler right against that line. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to, let's see, we're going to go this way. All right, so center arrow, center tick mark. And I've lined it up against that line. All right, so the first cut we're going to do is we are cutting across the top and the bottom, but not the side edges. All right, that's really important. We're not cutting the left or the right edges. And it tells us this right here on page 13 in this instruction. It says cut the top and bottom edges of the block as shown, but do not cut the left and right edges. And see how it's highlighted in yellow? So that's like the blaring sign that says, don't do this. This is an important step. So we're going to go ahead and, with the help of my rotating mat, which I really, really love, I will just simply cut the top and the bottom. All right. So go here. Place that rotary cutter in an extended channel right there. I'm going to flip this around to the other side and do the same thing on this side. Okay, again in the extended channel and then all the way across. Okay, so with the top and bottom being cut out, it's now time to fit it to the edges. So let's take a look and see what the instructions tell us to do. It tells us to remove the 4.5 by 6.5 inch ruler. So that's what I'm going to do. And now we cut the left and right edges of the block as shown. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to remove this. And now I cut the right and the left. Turn this around and do the same thing on this side. Okay. Now I can remove this, and you're going to notice that it doesn't cut all the way to the edges, does it? Because we've done this a little differently. So what it has us do now is just to take a regular ruler, and now we're going to just extend that cut from this point to this point, and from this point to this point, and the same on the opposite side. Okay. So I've done that one, and I'm about to do corner 2. now my last two corners. And finally this one over here. Okay, there we go. Now I have a 4.5 by 8.5 block. Absolutely perfect. Isn't that cute? I love all the additional sparkles and the fun, the leather, the mylar, the glitter, you name it. This block has it, right? So lots of really great techniques and lots of wonderful mediums to play with on our embroidery machines. So if you were able to do the easiest block and the most difficult block, then what do you know? The rest is going to be a piece of cake. So again, just follow those instructions step by step. You got this. I believe in you. And I cannot wait to see your pictures. Of course, if you have any questions at all along the way, please feel free to reach out to us. You can find us at mygirlfriendsquiltshop.com, or you can see us in Logan, Utah. We'd love to see you. We'd love to meet you, but we also love all of our friends online, and we're here to help however is needed. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you run into any trouble. All right? Okay, my friends, that is all for the March mini quilt. That was fun. Let's go ahead and, take a look at what is coming up next. We've got the April one just around the corner, and I can't wait to do that. That one is super cute with reverse applique on the embroidery machine. How fun is that? So until next time, happy stitching, keep doing what you love, and we'll see you again real soon.